Welcome back, everyone, to the Rocco and Ryan MMA Show. Today is episode number 10, and we have our last two Fight Island cards to recap really quickly, and then obviously another great card this Saturday, headlined by Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. But first, Rocco, you had a fun weekend this past weekend. Your boy Cody Durden picked up a huge win, and I know that was a really important fight for him because he's right on that doorstep of maybe signing with the UFC. Tell us how that fight all shook out.
Yeah, man, going in that fight, they had a lot of bad blood. You know, these guys have been bickering back and forth for years. And even before the fight, like at weigh-ins, they're talking crap to each other. And then about 2 o'clock before the fight, the day of the fight, they're both in the cage together. They're coming face to face. This guy's saying he's going to knock out Cody in 30 seconds. And Cody pulls off one of the funniest things that I've seen live. Cody's a very good shit talker. But anyways, they talking crap to each other face to face. Cody's like, all right, we're going to see. And he goes to shake the guy's hand like this. And the guy puts his hand up to shake hands. And then Cody's like, and I was like, oh my God. So it was just a pretty entertaining. And this guy's a hot head. Like even in the back, you know, it was outside at the Harley Deiveson place. And because no arenas right now are letting them inside. So the locker rooms are like right there. All you have is this little tiny curtain. So this guy, you can hear him yelling. He's pretty much coming down, staring down Cody in between. It was absolute chaos. But no, Cody went in there. So everyone was saying it's going to be tough. Cody's toughest fight. He absolutely ran right through him. Opened up, hit him right away with a big overhand, and took him down and just ground and pounded him within like 90 seconds. Finish. Absolute dominant performance. The guy's 7-0 or 7-0 his last 7 with all finishes. At 135, I feel like the UFC has to come calling, man. The guy definitely deserves it. He's a hard worker, and he's got that it factor. You know, you give this guy a mic, he'll say some crazy stuff, he'll do some crazy things, and he's entertaining. So hopefully he gets his opportunity.
Now, his opponent that he beat, you were saying there was a lot of trash talk and some bad blood there. Did he show some sportsmanship afterwards and congratulate Cody, or was he a little salty?
Well, Cody, right after the fight, gave him the DMX, the suck it, and the middle finger. So it was kind of not a great start but then we calmed Cody down, like, hey, calm down. You know, the blood's done. You can't have, you know, there's no more bad blood. Now you absolutely destroyed him. Like, there's no controversy. There's no, like, the guy can't say anything after that. So Cody went to shake his hand, but the guy went to shake his hand. And some fights in the crowd were going on because Cody came with a huge fan base. This guy had a big fan base. So it was people getting kicked out left and right. So it was a good experience. Now, it was good, though, man. I mean, I think that Cody almost got in trouble with the commission, but, you know, we had to talk with the commission, just like, listen, there's a lot of things that were going on before the fight, leading up to the fight, you know, years prior to the fight. This isn't just a normal fight. So they gave him an earful, but they understood what was going on. And so, yeah, man, it was a dominant win.
How big is he for the weight class?
No, he's not that big, man. He's not big, but he's not small either. But he's ferocious. I think he's a gamer, and he's just has crazy cardio with a really good. He's really well rounded, man. He's really well rounded, and I think he also works full time. So I mean, you get this guy a UFC contract, and he kind of, you know, maybe cut back hours and finally just maybe focus full time on fighting. This guy has endless potential, man, and I think that a great dude. If you're wondering about this Band-Aid on my forehead, this is some adult beverages with him and his buddies afterwards, and we're all wrestling and getting some rug burn, you know?
Well, happy to hear that you guys had a good time. Cody picked up the win and took one step closer to getting that UFC contract. I interviewed him for the first time recently, and what a great guy he is. I know how much he was looking forward to that fight and the bad blood that was leading up to it. So happy to hear it turned out well for all you guys, and you had a good time. Now we got another great card to break down this Saturday, Rocco. But first, a little recap of these last two cards. We didn't do so hot. We had a couple of really good records going into last Wednesday, but out of these two cards, I went 2-8 and you went 3-7. So I'm not quite sure what was in the water, if we just had a bad week all in all, but some interesting fights to say the least. But one thing that wasn't surprising was your boy, New England native here, Calvin Kattar, with a very impressive win over an extremely tough guy in Dan Ige. What was your takeaway from that win from Kattar?
Yeah, man, I thought that it was a dominant performance. Obviously, like you said, it was dominant. I do think that it was weird where Dan came out. I felt like Dan almost came with a different game plan that I expected going in. I thought that Dan would be a lot more forward pressure, a lot more tenacity getting after Calvin, you know what I mean? And I don't know if he felt Calvin's power right away, and it seemed like he was more just trying to counter-strike with Calvin, which made it a little bit slower fight than I anticipated going in. But I think that Dan's that guy, like I said before the fight, where he could give anyone in the top 10 a run for their money, but I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to win those fights at this moment. Maybe, he's still young and he still has time, and he's a great guy that works hard, but it's Calvin's time, man. I think Calvin's knocking on that doorstep right now, obviously, of a title shot, and he could slide in. Injury comes up, and Calvin can easily slide in there.
Were you disappointed that Calvin didn't get the finish, or is that more of you attribute this to how good Dan Ige really is?
Yeah, no, I think that obviously a lot of the things that you talk about, how Dan is, how tough he is, how tough he is, how smart of a fighter he is, and I think that those two things have helped him excel, where he might be not as skilled as these other guys, but I think that he excels because he's so mentally strong and he's such a gritty fighter with extreme toughness, where I think that if you really go in there doing everything you can to put him away, you're going to gas and you're not going to fight your fight, and eventually you're going to make a mistake. So Calvin fought a smart fight, and he took that shot early on in the second round that I think that made him a little bit more hesitant in the fight.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people have been talking about what is next for Calvin. Max Holloway, the former champion, seems to be someone that's getting rumored for him to be fighting next. Also, someone that I think makes a lot of sense is Yair Rodriguez. We've talked about it before, but if you were the UFC's matchmaker and you could match up Calvin with his next opponent, who would it be right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's just hard to really match him. I think he's either got to wait or he's got to fight Max, because the other two guys are booked right now, The other four guys, you got Yair's fighting Zabit. So I'm assuming that if Yair runs over Zabit or either way, the next one of those guys are getting a title shot. Because I don't know what's going on right now with Ortega and Korean Zombie, but they're supposed to fight, but there's no date scheduled, so I don't know what exactly is going on there. So the only guy available right now is Max Holloway, if Max wants to fight, and the champion right now. So those are the only two guys available. So I don't know what happens if Yair goes and fights the beat and the winner's injured. You know what I mean? Then what? Does Calvin jump into a title shot? Why have him fight Max and why have what's his name sit on the sidelines? He might as well. He could jump right in the line right now. So a lot of it is kind of I feel like it's a waiting game to figure out exactly how it's playing out, unless you want to just fight Max Holloway right away, which I think that's a very tough fight. Obviously, with Max's output is the only thing that I think is the issue that Calvin may run into, is that Max may outpoint him. But I think that Calvin has the skill set and the power to put Max away. I just always get worried with a guy with such high output. I do think that Calvin matches up very well with all of those guys. I mean, I think that he's got that it factor too, that second gear, where he could turn it up and really get after you. It's like a mean factor in him. So it's just interesting to see how it all plays out, and to see what those four guys outside of Max are going to look like after they fight,
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. The only thing I will say, if I'm in Calvin's corner, is that I'm not so sure. I think whoever fights Max next is going to get a very motivated dangerous Max Holloway, because if he loses again, man, that's not going to be good for him. You know he's going to come out guns a-blazing with his back against the wall. I'm not saying that would affect Calvin in that fight. I'm just saying I think whoever fights Max next is going to be in for a dog fight, which would make for a really interesting matchup. And you know, another thing that's interesting, I mentioned Yair Rodriguez, but when I go on Tapology, that fight with him and Zabit isn't on there, which is puzzling to me, and that's another reason why I'm not quite sure what's going on with that one. Have you heard anything? Has it been scrapped?
No, I'm seeing who is it that keeps posting the fight schedules coming up, and I think it's not maybe not official, but someone keeps posting it with colored, coordinated, where it's agreed upon, and then for sure and stuff like that. I saw them they're fighting in, I want to say September. But I could be off. But I think that I saw that on the books. Yeah, I see it on the books. I just don't see the Ortega yet. He's not. But the rumor is obviously him and Crane Zombie are going to fight. They just don't have a date yet. But I did see a date for Yair and them.
Okay, well, that's going to be a great fight. So a lot of interesting matchups to have moving forward at 145 pounds. The co-main event of this card, you had Ryan Benoit beating Tim Elliott beating Ryan Benoit via unanimous decision. A very close back and forth affair there. The one fight that I really wanted to get your take on, we were actually differing in opinion on this one, was Jimmy Rivera and Cody Stamann. Man, I'll tell you what, Jimmy Rivera looked very impressive here in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that I was shocked at how I felt like Stamann fought a little nervous. You know, I think that he fought nervous. I didn't expect him to fight like that, where I felt more so he definitely felt Rivera's power early on, and I felt like he didn't fight an aggressive style of a fight, you know, and but yeah, I mean, Rivera looked good, man. Rivera did look good. I thought that Stamann would give him a little bit more trouble in certain areas, but I think that Jimmy could feel that he was nervous, and that fed into him I won't say he wasn't respecting Stamann's striking, but it seemed like Stamann throws one and Rivera would throw like 3 or 4 with heavy shots, you know, and I think that was the difference of the fight.
Yeah, big win for Jimmy Rivera. It's going to be interesting to see what's next for him at bantamweight here moving forward. Also, Talia Santos beats McCann via unanimous decision. And a guy that really got my attention, Rocco, I believe we both tweeted about this, was Moner Lazez getting a huge win over El Hassan. I mean, that was pretty impressive. What did you think of this guy's performance?
Yeah, well, obviously, I feel like he exposed him, and just that he's a one-round fighter, man. You to be in the UFC, you have to be, power can get you so far, but you have to know when to use it and when to pull back. Well, Lazez was good, man. The only thing I got worried about a little bit is that he's throwing a lot of those elbows and knees that are keeping that range early on. You know what I mean? I think that those are more like, I feel like later on in the fights, those are coming into handy, you know, when that fatigue starts wearing a little bit, and then you saw, obviously that's what it started wearing him down. But I get a little worried about throwing those early on in the fight, but he looked like he had good grappling, a long, big guy with really good striking, got a great chin, great cardio. So, I mean, that guy seems like a very legitimate fighter. I mean, obviously I want to see him a couple more times before you say that he's really going to make a run, but I was impressed watching him weather that storm. That's a big task to jump in there and fight him right away, you know. And but it was more. I need to see a little bit more before I really put a figure on what he can do.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is a guy that you might be matching up with at some point down the line at 170?
Yeah, I mean, I could see this guy getting big fights right away. I mean, after a win like that versus a type opponent like that, I think that, I mean, you're deserving of a couple fights, maybe 2 fights outside that top 15. So I think that, you know, easily he has one more fight or whatnot that we could be fighting, you know. And so he's tough, man. He looked really good. I was impressed. I came out impressed. I just need to see, you know, a little bit more, and then I can make a real opinion on the matter.
Yeah, no, that's a good assessment. I agree with you on there. Before we move on to this next card, some breaking news. Holly Holm and the Aldana fight is now off. Aldana had to pull out. I'm not seeing the specifics as to why, but if you're watching this and you didn't hear about it, that fight is now off. So the co-main event will be bumped up to the main event fight. Now, as far as last Saturday goes, man, I mean, you were right. You nailed it on the head, 110% right. What can I say? I was literally just kind of like not just looking away while I was watching this fight. Joseph Benavidez just got dominated by Deiveson Figueiredo. It was bad, man. I still don't know how he got out of those two chokes. I mean, that's just complete heart. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Is this just how good is Figueiredo? Let me just start with that.
Ooh, I don't know if he shows up like that. If he keeps showing up how he showed up on Saturday, he's going to be hard for anyone to beat. I mean, he has another performance like that. I don't know, man. This guy, that was next level. You know what I mean? I was extremely impressed, man. I really was. You know, after obviously their first fight, him missing weight, you know, all that talk going in. He had trouble getting in, you know, so he came in late, I think, in Abu Dhabi. So he had all these like weird circumstances going on, but that guy delivered the goods, man. He seemed like he was. I don't know if in the first fight he must have felt something. He felt something in that first fight where he was just like, he can't hurt me. He can't hurt me. He can't touch me. And really, that was a whole nother level. You've never seen Benavidez outclassed like that, man. But like you said, you know, Benavidez is nothing but heart. Still was throwing, you know, and I figured it was going to be tough to beat for anyone, I think, if he shows up like that.
Benavidez has never been finished. In his illustrious career, he's been around for over a decade, never been finished. And he didn't just get finished. He got put out on Saturday night. And it was bad. It was tough to watch, man, especially for a nice guy like Benavidez. What did you think about what he said afterwards about he wants to just keep fighting until he gets a win? It came across kind of a little funny.
By Mighty Mouse?
What's that?
Mighty Mouse didn't finish him?
He's never been submitted. He's never tapped. Yeah, he's never been submitted.
I know that Demetrius knocked him out, I think, first round. But, sorry, what was the question?
What did you think of what he said after the fight, that he wants to just keep fighting until he wins? I feel like he spoke a little out of turn, like maybe he didn't mean it like that. But I don't – when you've accomplished so much as Joseph Benavidez has in his career, you don't want to go out like that. Like, that's not what you want your last memory inside the octagon to be. Where do you think he goes from here? What do you think he does?
Yeah, I mean, I got to take him at his word, man. It seems like a guy that, you know, he doesn't seem like he beats around the bush. Doesn't seem like he wasn't being. It didn't seem like it was an emotional reaction what he was saying. You know, it seemed like something that he thought through before the fight, and something that he's obviously been thinking about for a while. You know, he even said that he's like, yeah, if I won the title, I was gonna defend the title until I lost, and if I ever lost, I would fight until I won one more time and I'd walk away. So he's like, if I lost this one, I said I'd fight until I lost one more time. So he just sounds like he just wants to go out and win, and he's content with his career. You know, he's ready for the next chapter of life, and I think that he doesn't have anything left to prove to anyone else. But he definitely sounds like he just doesn't want to go out on a loss. So hopefully the UFC does him a favor and gets him a couple of not easy fights, because there's never an easy fight, especially in the UFC with all these hungry guys coming up. But hopefully he gets a couple opportunities to go out the way he wants to go out.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I hope he gets to go out the way he wants to go. At the end of the day, you know, I still agree with what I initially said. He is a winner. Just look who his wife is. He's doing all right in the life department. So he'll pick himself back up and move forward regardless of what the future in his MMA career is. Now, this co-main event, man, oh man, who saw this coming? I know I didn't. We both picked Gastelum to win, and it looked like he didn't expect Hermansson to do what he did and get that submission. It almost looked like he wasn't prepared or he didn't train it. What did you see from a fighter's point of view?
No, I mean, obviously, you've seen Hermansson grapple with Jacare. You've seen him grapple with all these guys, man. Like, this is a world-class grappler, man. You know going in, like, this guy, this ain't a joke. Like, this is one of the best grapplers, jiu-jitsu-wise, out there. You know what I mean? And I think he just, I don't want to say he got lazy. I don't want to say he got lazy, but I'll say that he let Hermansson play with that foot a little too long, man. Instead of just, like, the first time he grabbed it, he ripped out right away, spun around, then came back in. But the second time, he kind of let him play on the leg a little bit too long instead of just ripping out right away. He definitely, that's going to haunt him again. So I think he was looking good, man. I thought he was looking good. Hit that really good lateral. It just sucks to not see the fight go a little bit longer and really see Hermansson, see what he was going to be able to do with them. But no, it's a dominant win, man. It's a huge win for him, and sets him up for, either number one contender or, if not, a title shot.
Yeah, and clearly we know what's next for Hermansson. It's going to be a top-level fighter at 185. He's proven himself to be one of the best in the division. But what is next for Gustafsson? And if you look at who he's lost to and who he's beat lately, I'm just not sure what really is next for him. The guys he's beat are all either retired or past their prime. I mean, Bisping's retired. Tim Kennedy's retired. Johnny Hendricks is retired. He beat Jacare, who is, 40? And then all of his losses are guys that are the best in the division. I don't know what's next for him.
I would say let's see what happens with the Whittaker fight first. You know what I mean? If Whittaker loses to Till, that'd be a great fight. Whittaker versus Gustafsson. To really see which trajectory these guys are on. But I don't know. I would have to, you got to see where he's at personally. He's still 27, 28 years old. 28 years old, I think. So he's still pretty young, and depends on how hungry he is. You know what I mean? And obviously, he's got to take a step back and really, I think, lower the competition a little bit and try to get that momentum back. Because I'm telling you right now, people overlook it all the time. Momentum in this sport is very, very important. And when you lose that momentum, it's hard to get it back because you're going in with self-doubt. You're going in with you're trying to make changes because you're trying to figure out what the heck am I doing wrong? What do I have to change to not do this, not to make these mistakes? So you're trying to make changes. You may be switching camps. You may be adding in different type of training. So you're trying to figure out how you right the ship. And I think that first off, he needs to step back in opponents. If not, thinking about going back down to 170.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to piggyback off of what you just said. It depends on how hungry he is. He needs to be less hungry. He needs to drop down to 170 because him at 185, I don't think makes sense here moving forward. You even said in our last show that you've seen him, you've eyeballed him, and he's not a very big guy. So to fight at middleweight, when he's really one of the smaller guys in the division, I just don't think he's doing himself any favors. I think he needs to really dial in his diet, be a little bit leaner, go back down to 170 and make a run there. That's what I think needs to happen.
Yeah, the guy would be a monster there. I just think that depends on. He's thick. He's a thick guy for sure. You know what I mean? But he's got to figure it out personally. You know what I mean? And see where he wants to go. It's easy to stand here and be like, "Hey, this is what you should do." It's not what you should do, but you should diet all year round. It's easy to say, but there's a lot more to it. But that would be interesting to see what his next step is and to see where he's at mentally after that. Who knows? Maybe he's like, man, I feel great, and he drops into a short notice fight and he absolutely dominates and he puts himself right back in the swing of things. I don't know. I think that he definitely needs to figure it out for himself and see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, before we dive into this Saturday's card, I want to get your thoughts on this big winner, Rafael Fiziev, beating Diakese. Wow, what a performance. And this guy, I believe, is one of the striking coaches at, what is the gym again? Remind me.
Tiger Muay Thai.
Tiger Muay Thai. That's huge, right? So like, this guy's legit. Like, how impressed were you?
Well, honestly, so when we were talking before, I didn't know who it was. You know what I mean? So obviously when I'm watching the fight, I know who it is because I was out in Tiger for a couple of weeks. We sparred together even, and But after watching the fight, I was very impressed. I was shocked at what he was able to do to Mark, because I've trained with Mark and him. And after training with both, I thought that Mark is a more well-rounded and a higher level type of caliber fighter. But that was impressive, man. Those body kicks that he was landing on him, the way how he was moving outside those striking, and really whatever he wanted, man. That was what the most impressive thing was, is that I think he could have taken down Mark whenever he wanted. I was shocked. I personally think that Mark has just like it's a mental lapse in the fights. You know what I mean? There's something where he just can't get it to click inside the fight, because he's a phenomenal a fighter, man. I've seen him in the gym and seen what he could do, and he's world class, man. He's legit a top 5 fighter if he goes in with how he trains in the gym. And but Aziz, man, I think he deserves a huge fight. Deserves a huge fight after that. I think that obviously I'd like to see him match up with another striker, because that was a beautiful display of striking and art like that, and that puts on extremely exciting fights. And I don't know why you wouldn't reward him with a big time striker after that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That was extremely impressive. Huge win for him. You got to tip your cap to him. Also, a couple more big winners on that card. You had Lipsky and Askarov beating Pantoja in a very, very good matchup. Askarov is the real deal. I really like this kid. Before we move on to this card, I do want to ask you this, Rocco, and I've been meaning to ask you this for a while. Is there someone that stands out in your mind, someone that you've trained with that isn't really necessarily they don't spar very well, or they don't look as good in training, and then come fight night, it's like a switch is flipped and they're a completely different fighter? Is there one person that comes to mind?
Well, I always said there's 2 people. Well, 2 people is what I say is like, so number one, I always said Robbie Lawler was that, you know what I mean? Or that I trained with him a few times when I was down at ATT before. And before the Johnny Hendricks fight, I was down there, and he was like, I was still pretty new in the sport, you know what I mean? And 3 years into training, and he was like, "Oh, you want to come down and help me train for Johnny Hendricks?" And I'm like, well, first off, I'm not a wrestler, and I'm not a southpaw, so like that doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? Because like we'd be in the gym, and I'd be not ragged on him, but man, I thought that I was like getting the better of every grappling exchange we'd ever have. And even you watch him spar, and it was just like he just goes at his own pace, man. He doesn't, and then he gets in those fights, and I'm talking about you're a whole different fighter. I'm talking about it's like 10 times better. It was crazy. Calvin Kattar's the same, I think. Calvin Kattar's the something that I felt like when I was out there, he was always good. You know what I mean? He was good. And you could see the potential there, and you could see that he was, but you didn't think that he really had that power. You thought that he was just, he had a couple good, solid things, and really good. He had always had good hips in training, but you'd submit him all the time. You'd take him down. You'd striking wise, you get the better, and then you see him going in these fights, man, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like, where is this guy? Obviously, he's doing a little different training now, and they're training more. And when I was out there, the training, he was just getting back into the swing of things from taking a couple of years off. But still, I was like, he switches a flip. I'm telling you, he switches a flip when he gets in those fights. So I would say that he'd be that number 1 guy right now.
Well, what's the size difference between you and Calvin? How much bigger are you than him?
Calvin's got no ass. Okay, so if you look closely, Calvin's got no ass. So, I mean, size-wise, I'm definitely a lot bigger than him, you know. But I mean, I have to weigh at least 20 pounds. At least 20 pounds, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe. 20 pounds. Yeah.
Height-wise, reach.
I'm wider. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm definitely, you can feel it when we feel each other. Like, when we grab each other, you can feel the size difference. But obviously, he's a 45-pounder, but he's good, man. I'm telling you right now, he's a gamer. He's a guy that on fight night is a whole different fighter than you've trained with.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see what's next for him. Big ups to him for getting that huge win over Ige. Couple of great cards this past week, and we have another one this Saturday. So let's dive right in. 7 fights on the main card, starting with a 170-pound matchup between Alex Olivera and Peter Sabata. I don't know if you want to take the reins and start, or you'd like me, but I'm going to leave it up to you, my friend.
Yeah, well, Sabata, obviously you got the grappler versus striker and whatnot, but Sabata's had some tough fights, man. He's fought some top guys. Obviously, Alex is always that. I always put the question mark on Alex Olivera. You know what I mean? I always have the question mark because he's so wild. He's so wild. He's not scared, but he's such high level everywhere. But you also worry about him fatiguing. And sometimes he makes just dumb mistakes. It's just some of those dumb mistakes. But it's going to be an exciting fight. Alex always puts on exciting fights. Always an exciting fight. And for that, I definitely lean towards Olivera.
I'm in total agreement with you. I do feel like this could end up being a matchup where Sabata could control him in the clinch and maybe keep him away from what he does best, which is his striking on the feet and kind of being wild and creative. But I do think Alex Olivera is a little bit more of a veteran. He has some more experience than Sabata, and I do expect him to get back on the winning track and get a W here. The next matchup is a light. What's that? He has 10
kids.
Oh my
Alex Olivera has 10 kids, bro.
Are they all the same mother?
I don't think so. I think he might be having a couple of kids at the same time from different moms. That's kind of what I heard. I'm not 100%. So if I'm wrong, don't take it personal. I just kind of remember hearing something like this on like MMA Junkie not too long ago, like a couple of years ago. But it's possible that I'm off. But I do remember kind of like some stuff like that was going down. So I mean, that guy obviously a bonus machine for a reason. He needs those bonuses just to feed the family. I'm just.
So he is the MMA version of Antonio Cromartie, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, like 10 kids. Oh, I don't know. That's next level, man. You got to make some serious dollars for that.
There's no doubt. If I'm not mistaken, I think Cromartie, you know who Antonio Cromartie is, right? The ball player.
Chargers.
Yeah. I think he has 14 kids, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to Google that when we get off. But my God, 14? I mean, you thought 10 was bad. I mean, 14 is mind-boggling. I don't even know how I could function.
Yeah, but he's got millions on millions and millions of dollars. It's a little different where he probably has like 4 nannies at the house. So
probably with each nanny. All right, I digress. We won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but it's fun to joke around. All right, so Paul Craig and Antigulov here for a light heavyweight matchup. Paul Craig is 12-4-1. Antigulov is 20-6. I'm going to be honest, Rocco, I don't know as much about these guys. I do know Paul Craig a little bit. He's a little bit younger. I think he's got a bright future. And I'm just going with my gut on this one. I do expect him to get a win here. It could be a decision victory. I think these guys are relatively close as far as their skill sets when I look at who they have fought in the past. But I am leaning towards Paul Craig to get a unanimous decision victory here.
And this will be our first opposite pick. This will be our opposite. I've watched Paul Craig for a while, and again, like you said, I think he's got potential. I think that he's a solid fighter. I don't really know the other guy that well, but I looked at the guys that he fought and how he's lost and whatnot. And so I go with Antigulov.
Okay, all right. Well, so we have a differing of opinion here. I'll let you start with this next one unless you'd like me to do it. You got Marina Rodriguez and Carla Esparza. Rodriguez is 12-0-2. Esparza is 16-6. I'm leaning pretty heavy this way. I'm not sure. One way. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know that Rodriguez that well, but I looked at her record in the UFC. I saw the competition that she's fought, and I think she has 2 draws in the UFC, which I'm not sure if any fighter has ever had 2 draws inside the UFC. Majority draws, and Carla Esparza it's a weird, man. Like sometimes she looks really good, and other times it's like she gets like way outclassed. I do, after looking at the records and kind of seeing who they fought and whatnot, I think that I have Rodriguez with the win here.
Yeah, and I do agree there. I don't mean to sound bad saying this about Esparza, but I do look at her as a little bit of a gatekeeper. I feel like she's one of those fighters that, kind of keeps the elite from the rest. If you beat her, you take that next step into the higher echelon of the division. I think Rodriguez is in that higher echelon of the division. I do expect her to get by Esparza, maybe even a finish here. So we're both in agreement there with Rodriguez. Now, this matchup at heavyweight, I'm really, really looking forward to. You have the former heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum against Alexander Gustafsson, the former light middleweight challenger, and no, light heavyweight. He was at middleweight too, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'm having a brain fart, I guess. So, look, I've always been a big fan of Gustafsson. I still think in that first fight against John Jones, I think he won. I really do. And I think Verdum is a little bit long in the tooth. I think moving up to heavyweight, it's going to be interesting to see how that power translates for Gustafsson. I'm not sure how much weight he was having to cut to make it down to 205, but I think this move to heavyweight might be good for him, even if it's for a short period of time until he maybe makes the decision to go back down to 205. I don't think Verdum is going to get this fight to the ground here. I think Gustafsson's length and his reach is going to be able to keep Verdum at bay. And I think if he doesn't finish him with strikes, he'll end up wearing him down and win a decision in the end. So I'm going the mauler here, Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's an interesting matchup. Obviously, I think that Verdum looked absolutely not himself at all his last fight. He had that 2 years off after popping hot, and he came back and looked like he was on some drugs before. It looked like that 2 years of sitting on the, not sitting on the couch, but not fighting, maybe being off the drugs, did a number on him. I truly feel that way. I think that he was on a lot of stuff, and for that, I do believe that Gustafsson is going to easily win this fight. And it sounds like they've had some training history where Gustafsson says he absolutely ran him over in the training room, and that confidence. And after watching Verdum's last fight, I do feel like it should be a good night for Gustafsson.
Yeah, we're in total agreement there. I think Gustafsson probably will end up getting a finish here at some point in this fight. Now, the co-main event, I feel like we're back in 2005. We have Shogun Rua and Antonio Nogueira.
We skipped a whole fight.
What did we skip?
We never picked on this Chimaev. First fight of the night. First fight on the main card.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, 7 fights on the main card, right?
Oh, there's 7. Yeah. Okay. All right. My bad. I thought I had them all jotted down. See, this is why I have you around, to keep me in line here. All right. So go ahead. Give me your pick there.
Well, I don't really know this other guy that's coming in, but Chimaev, remember, he just fought last weekend at 185, the Russian who's doing that 10-day turnaround. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I do.
So, everyone's talking about this guy being Khabib 2.0, being a wrecking shop. I don't know much about this other guy, but I know that the only thing I get concerned about is you fought 10 days ago, right, at 185. So you might be coming in a fight like 190, 195, right? Even if he's saying that he's not that big, 190, 195. 10 days to cut another 20, 25 pounds, because now he's going down to 170. That's the only thing I get concerned about, is him having to make this weight cut. But with that said, he looked like a wrecking, a 10-7. He had a 10-7 that first fight. I don't know this other guy. He's obviously, I think it's his first time in the UFC. So I don't know how good this Chimaev is, but I guess there's some high praise from Jimmy Manuel and Gustafsson as well, that this guy's the real deal, and he's a very, very dangerous fighter. So I definitely think that it's going to be another dominant performance.
Yeah, I mean, and that fight against John Phillips, a round 2 Darce choke, he looked like an absolute tank. Very, very impressive. He looked big for the weight class too. I thoroughly expect him to not only win this fight, but to really keep the momentum going here moving forward. And, I got to tell you, Rocco, Tapology is really screwing me, because when I go on here, that they don't have it as a main card fight. So I'm blaming Tapology for my mistake here.
Yeah, I always go to the ESPN one.
You always go to the ESPN one. Okay, well, maybe that's what I need to do from now on. I need to follow your lead and go to ESPN. All right, well, tell me this co-main event. We'll get back to that. You got Shogun and Antonio Nogueira. I mean, again, I feel like I'm back in 2005 with these two guys. I mean, they're legends of the sport. They've been around forever. Shogun is 26-11-1, and Antonio Nogueira is 23-9. So tons of experience. You know, regardless of where the fight goes, both of these guys have elite level skill sets. I feel like you could kind of flip a coin. I could see it going either way. I am leaning one way. And that is Shogun Rua. I think he's got a little bit more left in the tank, and he's got that big overhand right. And when he lands it, it usually can cause a lot of damage and put his opponents in a lot of trouble. So I am going with Shogun. But again, this is one of those fights where, you know, they're both older. You're not quite sure, you know, how many times that button has been pressed on their chin, and it could go either way.
Yeah. What have they had? 2 crazy wars already. Absolute. One of them was like one of the fights of all time. You know what I mean? And just absolute wars these guys have had. And Nogueira, they're saying this is his last fight. This is his retirement fight. He says win, lose, or draw, that he's walking away. And Shogun's not saying the same thing. You know, I don't hear that from Shogun. Obviously, he knows his time's up. You know, or coming up. You know, and he's probably going to be just looking for fights like this, legend fights. And he's not ready to put on the shelf, and for that reason, I definitely lean towards him as well.
Yeah, I still remember that fight with Dan Henderson back in the day. That was one of the best fights of all time.
Yeah, yep. Crazy. That was how they took that much damage is absolutely crazy, right? They yeah, that's one that if you haven't seen, you got to go back and rewatch it. And if you have seen it, you got to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Hey, did you see what was going on, the back and forth between Bisping and Henderson? And if so, what was your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know, they've had obviously bad blood for a while with Henderson knocking out Bisping like that when they were all talking crap. And then Bisping handpicking Henderson when he was the champion and squeaking out a win versus, 90-year-old Henderson. I think they really just don't like each other. I don't think they like each other. But I'm not a huge fan of you being a analyst and talking like that. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan of it. You know, I think that any other sport, you're going to probably have some repercussions for talking like that. And I think that this is the only sport that you can get away with being like that. But it's hard, you know. You have these. Obviously, Bisping's been a shit talker his whole life, so it's tough when someone talks shit to you to not say something. But it was entertaining. That's for sure. It was entertaining.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I got to be honest. I'm a big fan of Bisping. I think he's a riot. He cracks me up, and I think he's good in his analyst position. But I do agree with you. It really is the only sport that they can get away with it, because what they did for a living was punch each other in the face. So it is a little bit different. You need to excuse them in some way, shape, or form. All right, so this main event fight, 185 pounds, Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. Robert Whittaker, the former champion. And again, like I tried not to be biased. I got to be objective as a journalist. But Robert Whittaker is one of my favorite fighters. I love this guy. I love his style. I love his heart. He's fought through. I mean, man, those 2 fights with Yoel Romero. My God, that guy's a beast. Just to be able to say that you beat Yoel Romero is unbelievable. And Darren Till, he's got an unbelievable record. He's 18-2-1, but he is coming off, that big knockout loss fairly recently to Jorge Masvidal, which was a little surprising. I can't lie. And because of that in particular, it really just sways me all the way over to the Reaper. I think if Jorge Masvidal is going to be able to hit that button and knock out Darren Till, I can't imagine what Robert Whittaker is going to be able to do. Plus, Whittaker, after losing the belt to Adesanya the way that he did, I think he's going to come back like a man possessed. I think you're going to see vintage Robert Whittaker in this fight. And I do think he's going to finish Darren Till. I don't know if it's going to be in the first round or the second round, but I am predicting a finish. I think Robert Whittaker goes in there and puts hands on Darren Till and knocks him out.
Knocks him out, huh? Okay. I've always been impressed, man. Whittaker, like you said, those wars that he had with Romero. I remember a broken hand. I mean, what he was doing in there versus the biggest freak to ever step foot in the octagon is Romero. You know, obviously that's just this guy's gonna be 7 years old still fighting in there. I mean, like, is the guy ever gonna age? I don't know if he's ever gonna age. You know, the only thing that may turn colors is his hair. So I think that I agree, man. I think that Till is dangerous because Till's not scared to pull the trigger. Except he was a little bit hesitant, obviously, in his last fight versus Gustafsson. You know, I think that was a fight he was a little nervous, trying to figure out how he would feel at 185. It was his first fight there, and this is his second fight. And with Whittaker coming off that knockout, you know, you never know either how his chin's going to hold up. You know what I mean? And you know that Till's going to try to test it. With that said, I do think that Whittaker has a lot more skills. I think that he's a lot more well-rounded. And I do think that he could easily knock out Till and win anyway. So I gotta go with Whittaker. I like him too, man. He seems like a great person. Hopefully, I would love to see him. I think he's deserving of a rematch. You know, if he destroys Till, I think that he deserves a rematch, and I would like to see it. I would enjoy them running it back. So we'll see how this one goes, but I do expect him to put on a performance and to make a statement here.
Yeah, and you know, I told you before, I was supposed to interview Robert Whittaker before this fight. I don't know if you saw what happened with his manager. I'm not going to get into it, but Google it when we get off. And I actually spoke to his manager just recently, and we're going to do a post-fight interview once he gets back to Australia and whatnot. But some interesting times for that management group out there in Australia. But I really am excited to see Robert Whittaker back in the octagon. Again, one of my favorite fighters. I love this guy. The Reaper just brings it every time. And that fight against Adesanya, I think, really left a bad taste in his mouth. So I think we're going to see a very scary Robert Whittaker here come Saturday night. Rocco, where are you watching the fights? You staying home? You going out? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm not sure yet. I might go out to Cody's, you know, see what's going on, or stay here. I don't know. I'll be definitely watching the fights. So these are what a great card, really. You know, it's actually, I feel like it's a very solid card. With what do they have? 15 fights on the whole card. That's a big card, man. I'm excited. I think that it's gonna be a great show. And I think we only have one differing pick. You know what I mean? I think that we gotta stop thinking so alike. Mostly after going 2-8, 3-7 last few cards. So it's time to, I'm gonna start doing my research on all these fights this time. I'm not coming in blind like that again. I think those last few cards, though, we didn't know a lot of the fighters. I think that was debuting for a lot of those guys, and that was just but I think that this one is a little bit more straightforward, and I think there's going to be some very exciting fights.
No doubt. We actually had a couple of very solid, respectable records up until last week, and then that kind of changed it a little bit. Now I'm 16-14. You have a 2-game lead on me at 18-12. So not where it was, but you know what? I have confidence in the both of us to turn it back around, and we'll have a lot more wins than losses come the end of 2020, I'm sure.
I'm going 7-0. I'm going 7-0. So you bet that to the house. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep that in mind. And after that second main card fight come Saturday night, I'm going to give you a little text and see how that is.
Okay.
Awesome, brother. Well, listen, always a pleasure to talk to you. For Rocco, Martin, I am Ryan Jarrell. We'll see you guys for episode 11 next week.
See you guys.